Okay, so we said the one that was the same was the yellow one, our x value. And the ones that changed is our y coordinates, right? I went from -7.5 to -1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my number line vertical. I'm going to color code it. What I need you to remember is that for negative numbers, zero, if zero's up here, right? The farther away you are from zero, the smaller you are, right? So therefore, -7.5 would be below -1.5. And so now I just have to count. Mommy, 1 second. Okay, not right now. Okay, give me a minute. I know. Okay, 1 second. So then I can count up from -7.5 to -1.5. I can do so by ones because they have the same fraction. So I can say -6.5, -5.5, -4.5, -3.5, and -2.5. So if I count my jumps, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I know y'all are giggling. So I went that way so y'all could have your giggle, but I have to stop here, right? -1.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we stop at 6. I went up 6 units. Okay. Trick I was going to show you was when you don't have to cross 0, if you pay attention here. On number 4, I was going from 6 and 2 or 2 to 6. If I just subtract the big one from the big one minus the small one, so 6 minus 2, I get 4, and 4 was my answer. Here, I had to cross 0, so I added. On 6, I don't have to cross 0. You see that? So my subtraction should still work. So let's see. If I do the large one, 7.5 is the same thing as 7.5 minus 1.5. Well, 1.5 is also 1.5. 7 minus 1 is 6. So I get 6 units. Let's see if this keeps working out. Let's look at number 7. You notice now the one that's the same is my y coordinate. So that one's the one that did not change. Therefore, the one that's going to change is my x coordinate. So my x coordinate went from -2 1/4 to 7 3/4. Remember, my x-axis goes horizontal. And did I cross 0 or no? Well, yes, because -2 1/4 is below, it's before 0. I'm going to have to cross 0. And then I'm going to do 7 3/4. 1 second, baby. Okay. So if I do this, I can see, okay, well, if I'm going to have to cross 0 to go there, I'm going to have to travel 2 1/4 this way. And then I'm going to travel another 7 3/4. So you're traveling from here to here, and then from here to here. What does that sound like? Does that sound like I'm having to add or subtract? Well, you're having to add, right? 2 1/4 plus 7 3/4, right? You're traveling this distance and that distance. And means add, right? So, how do I add? Well, it already has a common denominator. I can go ahead and convert to improper. Remember, 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9/4. 7 times 4 is 28 plus 3, 31/4. Remember, fractions, my denominator stays the same, common denominator. Then 9 plus 31 is 40. 40/4. Check if it needs to be reduced. Some of you already know the answer. 4 goes into here one time. 4 minus 4 is 0. Bring the 0 down. 4 goes in 0 times. So I am 10 units away. Okay, we're going to stick to our trick. Why are we not going to keep counting? Well, it's going to get hard to count when you have fractions and decimals, right? So let's try number 8. Let's identify which value is the same. My yellow value is the same. That's the one that did not change. Which one changed? Well, my Y value, my green value. Okay, so now let me go ahead and see. Am I having to cross 0? Well, negative 6 1/4 is here, and then negative 3 1/4. 0 would be here. Well, I'm not having to cross. If I don't have to cross 0, remember, we don't add. I just have to go from here to here. We subtract. We want to know how many units are between 6 1/4 and 3 1/4. A lot of you can already tell me 3, but let's go ahead and test it out, okay? So I would subtract the larger minus the smaller. In proper fraction, 6 times 4, 24, plus 1 is 25. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Remember, we keep the common denominator, and we can subtract 25, take away 13. 5 take away 3 is 2. 2 take away 1 is 1. So it's 12 over 4. If I do 12 over 4, 4 goes into 12 3 times. So I am 3 units. And some of you could already tell me that. Okay, I'm going to leave this one for y'all to practice later, because I want to go ahead and practice the easier ones here, where it's going to kind of have it filled in for you on your Sabbath assignment. And remember, that one's not due till tomorrow night, because tomorrow I'm going to answer some questions. What I want you to do today is at least start that assignment, okay? So let's find the distance between these points. What do they do? Okay. Well, first, identify the one that didn't change. That was the Y. So that's why I did green. Then the one that did change was this guy, the X. These changed. So the trick that we've been doing uses absolute value. Why does it use absolute value? Well, because we're only taking into account the number. Remember, I've said large minus small. I haven't even looked at the negatives. And do I have to cross 0? Yes, you cross 0 because you're going from negative to positive. We said if we have to cross 0, we have to add. Well, that's exactly what they did here. You're going to get the absolute value of 2. Remember, we did absolute value last section. Plus the absolute value of 7, because those were my yellow coordinates, okay? That's where these are coming from. They're still your yellow values. Well, the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Remember, is how far negative 2 is away from 0. How far is negative 2 from 0? 2 units. Then the absolute value of 7. How far is 7 from 0? 7. 2 plus 7 is 9 units. Let's see and try 11. Which value did not change? This one. So I'm going to ignore that guy, right? I'm worried about the one that changed. I need to figure out how much did it change by. Well, I went from negative 8.4 to negative 4.2. This changed here. Sorry. Did I cross 0? Well, let's think about that. I went from negative and stayed at negative. So no, we do not cross 0. So we said when we do not cross 0, we have to subtract. And that's exactly what they already did here. So you do the absolute value of negative 8.4 minus the absolute value of negative 4.2. Again, these are your green values from here. Well, the absolute value of negative 8.4 is 8.4, because how far is negative 8.4 from 0? 8.4 units. How far is negative 4.2 from 0? 4.2 units. So I subtract 8.4 minus 4.2. That's 4 and 4, and bring your decimal down. Why did I say 4, guys? Thank you to those of you who caught that. 4 minus 2 is 2. 8 minus 4 is 4. So 4.2 units. Okay? Let's try this one. Which guy are we going to be able to ignore? The one that did not change was my y value. The one that did change is my x value. Remember, you have already done this for 3 weeks, right? X is yellow, y is green. Am I going to cross 0? Yes, I am, because I went from positive to negative here. So if I cross 0, I said I have to add. And I showed you why we have to add. So the absolute value of 12.5 and the absolute value of negative 4.5. Again, those are my yellow values, right? The absolute value of 12.5 is 12.5. The absolute value of 4.5 is 4.5. So I can add. You can convert to improper, but hopefully some of us already caught on to 12.5 plus 4.5. I can add the 12 and the 4. 12 and 4 makes 16. And then I can add my half and half. Well, 1/2 plus 1/2 is a whole. So 16 plus 1 is 17 units. Okay? All right, so what I want you to do is go to your Savas Realize assignment, work on it at home. You don't have to finish it. If you get to a point where you have a question, just stop there, move on to another one and see which ones you can do. And then tomorrow I will help. We'll finish during class, or we'll keep working during class, and it won't be due till tomorrow night. Have a blessed day.